Right. Well, good afternoon. We're changing a few things up here, and I want to give some kudos here to my amigos. Jake, I've got Jake Pollack here. I've got Stephen Reif. I've got Alice Wang, and so collectively, we're going to be kind of the podcast team moving forward. So I appreciate the Ed. These guys prepared a lot of good questions. They put a lot of good thoughts into this, but these are going to be the usual suspects accompanying me on these podcast calls. So I just want to thank you guys for the extra time you're putting in, your interest, and how you want to make these Zoom calls better. So thank you guys. You guys want to introduce yourselves at all, real quick, before we get to Ed?
What's up, guys? I'm Jake. Nice to meet you.
Hey, Jake.
Keep it short and sweet.
Hey, Stephen, good to see you.
You too, buddy.
Hi everyone, I'm Alice. I know
Hi,
all of you guys.
Alice. Nice to see you again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you.
right. Well, great. And so, as I shared an email with you guys before this call, if there's any good follow-up questions that are sparked as our guests are, giving us some of their answers, feel free to just throw your voice out there. You don't have to put it into the chat. So we're going to make this a collective effort. So our first call with this new format is going to be Mr. Ed Cunliffe. So Ed, here's the story I was gonna say to you before I hit the record button. I'm like, oh, let me hit the record button first. So we're in Mexico and I'm talking with Mike Palumba. So me and Mike really enjoyed that tequila tasting experience, right? So for whatever reason, he and I were just like, man, this is like, we've never quite had tequila like this before. It was a great time. And as we're chatting a little bit, I'm like, I found that call that you guys did, that YouTube channel, if you want to call it that, or whatever the podcast was that you and Mike had going on. I thought it was awesome because, like, you're just the kind of guy that I could listen to for a long time. Like, just like I like listening to Joe Rogan. Like, I could listen to him for, hours at a time, and I do. Albert Moeller, I listen to him, talking at me. I could listen to you and Palumba. I mean, you guys are both very entertaining. And so I asked him, like, how come you guys don't do that anymore? He says, why don't you ask Ed?
All
So
right.
we're starting off. Why are you not doing that anymore, Ed?
Well, I think we ran out of stuff to talk about. Maybe that's a weak source answer, but the whole point of it wasn't really to educate or do anything other than for ourselves. We wanted to get as many stories out there before we forget them, so that I don't know, maybe one day our kids might listen to them. I don't know. I felt like it just ran its course, but maybe we should bring it back. Who knows?
Well, I think you should bring it back because Ed, you have more stories in you. I know you do.
Oh, for sure.
You're gonna throw a bunch on this call that you're like, actually, that reminds me, and you're gonna give us some stuff. But you have a talent, Ed. You're you're not you're not the normal guy. You're a different kind of cat, and I think that's what makes you special in your own way. And so we're gonna start off. Here's a question that came from Jake and his reps. I think all of us recognize. I'm going to read right off my notes here, Jake. Um, Obviously, you're really good. You probably are the best at really explaining the business like an opportunity meeting, right? Like you're really good at it. You can do a short version, you could do a 10-minute, you could do a 30-minute. You're even known to do like an hour, hour and a half long opportunity meeting. What's the process in formulating how to be effective at explaining your opportunity?
Short answer is the truth. So many times people have said, "Man, Ed, you just keep it real," and I'm like, I don't really know how else to keep it. And my goal in the opportunity meeting is not to motivate people, and I think that's where some people go wrong. That's their intent. All I'm really trying to do is educate. This is how it works. This is what we've got. It's not for everyone, right? And so growing up playing sports, the first practice at my high school, everyone in England plays soccer. We call it football because it's a game with a ball that you kick with your foot. But anyway, big high school. So we would have over 100 people come to the first practice. And, we had a pretty good team and a very good coach. And, before we did anything or, in terms of physical exertion, the coach would kind of give a speech and he would lay out what's going to happen. And, he would say, look, we're going to try and win the whole thing again this year. That's obviously the goal. And how we're going to do it is A, B, C, D, E, F, right? All I needed to hear was the first part. I'm in, right? Other people, when they heard the details, were turned off by the work and the effort that would be involved. So I kind of have that same strategy with the opportunity meeting in that I'm just going to tell you how it is, how it works. Some of the things that I appreciate, it's 100% merit-based. There's no politics. There's no BS. There's no favoritism. There's no nepotism. There's no, you don't have to be here for a certain period of time to move up. It is very much like sports in that we just look at the scoreboard, and it's a performer's paradise. Now, there's a lot of hard work that goes into being successful, and there's lots of negatives and there's lots of obstacles. And this is what I don't like about the business. I don't like mean customers. I don't like it when somebody that I put a lot of effort and energy and somebody that I think could do really well quits on themselves. I still don't like that after 24 years, but it's part of it. And then when I get to, the numbers and I give specific examples of, this person did it in this amount of time and this person did it in that amount of time. And, this is how I did it. All I'm doing is sticking to the facts. And I feel like by doing that, you turn on and tune in the right people. And it also helps you maybe get rid of the wrong people. Right. And so I always joke when I go visit an office, they're like, will you run a meeting? I go, absolutely. I go, just so you know, the sign of a really good opportunity meeting is a couple of people are probably going to quit this morning. Are you okay with that? Right. And I read John Wooden's book a long time ago, but, and a lot of people have kind of adopted his coaching approach, a lot of great coaches. And, one of his theories, which worked out pretty well for him, was, you got to figure out who needs to get on the bus, who should get off the bus, and where everybody should be sitting on the bus. And so I don't know, I tell it like it is. And it appeals to the right people. There's plenty of us out there. And our business is designed for ambitious, driven, go-getters that aren't scared of hard work, that probably even enjoy the obstacles and the challenges in a weird way. It's like I can do something that isn't easy, and you
definitely
very
keep it
well.
real. I mean, for sure you keep it real, but you also have like really good analogies. So like somehow you connect the dots to things people are like, oh yeah, that's any thought on where you get these analogies, how you connect the dots to something really simple?
Yeah, I grew up around John Wiggins, who's the king of analogies, right? So that's how he explains almost everything, like anecdotally. And so, yeah, I think it just makes sense in my brain, and I don't even give it much thought. It's just off the cuff. I'm, it's kind of like this, but I do think that it lands well when you can use an analogy. People see it slightly differently in it, and it maybe they retain it a little bit better.
Yeah, it's good. Good.
Thank you.
And along the same line from Jake, and he surveyed some of the people in his office. What are you doing exactly to support your organization? I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but you've got around 90 owners in your org. Like, you guys are doing $1.5 million a week in production. So what's your role? How are you supporting your organization?
Yeah, so we don't have that many, and I don't really care about the number of offices. I'd rather have less offices doing more. I know we'll eventually have more and more offices, but I think we have like 78 offices, and we've paid out as much as 1.79 million. That's our highest, but we are kind of averaging in between 1.55 and 1.6. So it's good. It's good. It's healthy. What am I doing? I feel like the business repeats itself at every level. So in a way, I kind of look at my org like I've got 78 people in my office. If I have 78 people in my office, where would I spend my time? Where would I put my effort and energy? And I am a believer in the A player, B player, C player school of thought. In that, it's not that I care about anyone more or less, but I am aware that the A players over the next 5, 10, 20 years will create most of the growth. So I make sure that A players get whatever they need. I read a book on, I read a couple of books, Richard Branson and Jack, who was the GE guy, straight from the gut?
Oh, Jack Welch.
Jack Welch. And they both talked about A, B, and C players. And it's kind of the 80-20 rule, but in a lot of sales organizations, the top 20% generate 80% of the revenue, right? And so their thinking was you never lose an A player. And if you ever do lose an A player, there should be a full inquiry into what went wrong, and so I think I'm really pretty good at making sure the A players are feeling loved and taken care of, and I'm always available. That's easier said than done, but I pick up my phone. If I can't pick up my phone, I immediately text them and tell them why I can't pick up the phone, and I will call you back, but they at least know that I know that they called me. Yeah, so I think that's an overriding, and B players can become A players. So I spend a lot of time with the B players, and sometimes somebody's just a B player because they're newer and they don't have the experience and the wisdom, and maybe they haven't made enough mistakes yet. And hopefully we don't have too many C players, but mathematically everybody does. I think my Friday emails have had a positive impact. High performers, maybe even more so than money, love recognition. And so on the odd occasion when I miss somebody off the high roller list, I just made a mistake. I almost get a text message within 2 minutes, which tells me that people are opening it and reading it. Like, you missed me, right? So, and high performers like to compete. So I think that's helpful. I try and give them content in that email so that maybe that will help them in terms of their thinking and their approach and how they're looking at things, but also might give them some good material to run their morning meeting on Monday and share that message with their guys. One thing that I have done over the last few years, which is becoming increasingly hard to do, is I told all the rookies, as soon as you have a 25K wire, I'm coming to your office. And so, I think in the past when somebody had a 20K wire, they kind of relaxed and got comfortable. Whereas when that was thrown out there, people, were like, Eddie, I had a $22,000 wire, you're coming to see me soon. So they keep going, Yeah, I don't know. I'm very much a feel player, Jamie. I go with what feels right at the time. So I'll throw. I had 2 Rolexes in my safe at home that I never wear. I'm a James Bond Omega guy, right? And this one morning, I was like, I'm gonna run a competition with the org, and the winner gets a Rolex because I wasn't using it, and I thought somebody might like that. And we did like a 6-week competition. We set it up to where basically anyone could win it, and people competed. That it moved the needle. I've done lots of stuff, lots of things like that. Taking 12 owners to the Olympic Games in London. Part of that was because I wanted to go, and thought it might be fun to go with a bunch of cool owners. So I don't know. I really wish I could explain it better, other than when I get on a golf course, I feel it. I'm not thinking about it too much.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's, I think there's a lot of us in the business, even myself, who I want as much structure as I can get, yet, well, for sure, you got to kind of go with some gut instincts and the hunch, and you've seen this play out 150 times before, so you kind of have some ideas of where you're going to go with this. So I do like getting a feel for things. Even, you draft up a speech, let's say, you're speaking after a handful of speakers, and you're willing to pivot and morph based on a feeling of the crowd. So that makes a lot of sense. I've seen guys like John Wiggins writing up a speech, right before he goes up. I'm like, oh, what a lack of preparation on one thought. But then the other thought is, oh, he's got a great feel for the room. He knows what the audience needs to hear. And he's got some genius when he gets up there and speaks, but it comes from a ton of experience, obviously.
Sure.
Um, well, so Alice has a good question. I think this was great. This summer, I had a chance. I went up to Montreal and I met a rep on her team that she had pitched. She's going business to business in Calgary, and she's pitching, Amazon. And she walks into a Little Caesars Pizza, and she not only makes the sale, but she recruits the owner of that franchise to come join her and, build a team with her and stuff. And I'm like, I think we're going to see more and more of this as time goes on, as AI is going to, unfortunately, a lot of people are going to lose their jobs. Like even a big company like Salesforce just let go of 4,000 people that were programming AI that were replaced by that same AI that they built. I mean, it's kind of ironic.
Crazy.
But I think we're going to see a lot of overqualified people coming through the door as the years go on. And so, what are your thoughts on how you explain such a raw entry level position to somebody who's got a lot of experience, who isn't looking for that? Oh man, I did that entry level stuff like 7 years ago, Ed. I'm looking for a sales management position. Any key things you would say to get those sharp recruits that are quote unquote overqualified?
Yeah. Um, I would, again, just talk from the heart, and I would explain to them that for me, the entry level position was far less important than where it could go. So when I was 25 years old, I got some great advice, in that I should ask in every interview, where can I be a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And certainly over my career, I've probably done 15, 16,000 interviews in person. And whenever a sharper, quote unquote, older person would come in, I would say, well, this is entry level sales. I see that you've been working at this company for the last 9 years. Why are you here? Kind of thing. And 99 times out of 100, they would say, because I feel like I'm stuck. There's nowhere to go. I can't advance, And so I would just explain to them that there is a ton of upward mobility in our business. You can go at your own speed. You can write your own check at every single level of the game. However, it's important that it's not even important, it is essential that everyone starts at the entry level, because you can't manage people when you haven't been in that exact position, and I think that's one of the beautiful things about our business. No one is ever going to give you coaching or advice on anything that they haven't already experienced themselves. So I would get people to understand that, that the managers in our business are the captain of the team. Certainly for the first year, they're still very much on the field, and they're still playing, and people respect that. And I'm sure we've all had jobs in the past where we had bosses that were telling us to do something that they couldn't do. So and I do see it. There's a lot of my friends that have kind of come out of the woodwork over the last 6 months. I've hired a few of them. That had some pretty nice, comfortable, high-paying positions that are looking a little bit more into the future for sure. And the reality is, in our business now, I mean, a good entry-level rep can make very good money, which wasn't the case 20 years ago. But I was in Mikey's office this morning, and the top 5 high rollers, the number 5 guy made over $600. The top guy made $1,665 yesterday. That ain't bad.
Right.
you
Yeah.
know? Oh, and it gets better.
Right.
And you can run your own company and make your own decisions and not work for the man.
Right. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, we now, I mean, talk about the evolution of the business. I mean, we have this laundry list, this huge list of reps that are making 6 figures as an entry level rep. So again, a lot easier to digest going through the field of entry level when it's like, oh, it's a 6-figure entry level position. And we have owners making 7 figures. I mean, that's back in the day, only a senior consultant could make, 7 figures in a year. But now, we have owners pulling that in that have, I've got 3 outside deals. So between promoting owner bonus and my ICL, I'm making $1 million. I mean, that's amazing. So yeah, the economics certainly help, no question about it. Yeah, it's funny you say.
Well, and going back to your AI point, which obviously it's not like it's gonna happen, it's happening. Face-to-face communication, face-to-face conversation, face-to-face commerce has literally been around since the caveman days. And I just don't think it's ever going away. In fact, I think, based on what I told you about the story with AI, I think the more advanced AI becomes, it's going to become harder and harder to know who to trust,
Right.
but you can trust a human being that's standing in front of you until it gets so advanced that it's a robot that looks just like a human being. And that's a whole nother can of worms, but.
Right. And just, I want to touch on this. This is, I mean, I don't know if you've even heard this over the years. Just again, back to the purity of the business that, if you're going to lead people and manage people, in this space, you have to have walked a mile in their shoes. I remember years ago, back in the old days, Larry Tenenbaum was telling me there was a guy who wanted to buy the rights. I can't remember to what country. I think it might have been Germany or something like that. Like, this guy saw the writing on the wall that the company's going all over the world, and he wanted to negotiate the rights. And Larry's like, listen, you only need to invest $100. So the guy was shocked, like, wow, I'm ready to pay millions of dollars. Like, listen, you just got to spend $100 on a comfortable pair of shoes, right? Like, you got to go through the field. Like, you can't buy the rights. You got to earn the rights, by going through the field. So you do have to love that. There's nobody that you can find in the business like, yes, his parents got him that ICL for him. Like, nobody has that story. And so just to kind of pivot here a little bit to Stephen Reif had a good question. Like, I think this is a good one. I'm curious to hear your answer. What separates or what differentiates a really good promoting owner from a not so good promoting owner? Like, as he's about to enter that world, like, what would make him a great promoting owner compared to just average?
Yeah, so I can only really talk from experience, but I closed down 3 of my first 4 outside deals after I thought I had it all figured out. And then after that, I did much, much better based on that experience, right? Human beings only learn through pain and suffering. So I would say in my experience, those first 4 people that I promoted out, I identified red flags that I was conscious of that might be a problem later, but I promoted them out anyway. So one guy was really terrible with money as a leader, made lots of money, but would always need, an advance or a loan. And I didn't really fix it. I put a Band-Aid on it, had a couple of conversations, but it was never fixed. And then that became a bigger problem. I had another person who was all business, extremely hard worker, had no problem taking 2 people out at a time to train and always had great results. But they genuinely didn't want to hang out with their guys outside of the office. Didn't want to come to team night, came, but begrudgingly. And I still promoted that person out. And the thing that the red flag that I had identified is ultimately what led them to fail in the end. And so after that, I kind of made a promise to myself that I'm not going to promote out the problem. I'm going to fix the problem before I promote out. The other thing for me, I just don't think I was a particularly good coach in the beginning there. I was more worried about being everyone's friend, and I don't really like confrontation. And I would stay away from the tough conversations. And I wrote in my notepad, probably in 2004, from now on, I'm not worried about hurting people's feelings. I am worried about hurting their opportunity. So I just made a decision to sort of raise my game and make sure that in my heart, I felt like they were 100% ready to succeed. And until they were, I kept them in my office. And Brad Park said something to me years ago. He's like, I'm not going to send my guy over the hill to get slaughtered, right? If you have an inkling that they may not succeed, you shouldn't send them into battle. He's like, because they're going into battle. So I've got to make sure that they're fully prepared before I send them over the hill.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There usually aren't a lot of surprises, are there? When a guy gets
No.
promoted, you're kind of like, yeah, I sort of knew that. I was just hoping, that those.
The other thing I would say, as you probably know, I ran a marathon in 2009 with 0 training. 0. It was just all mind over matter. Like, I'm going to do this. And I didn't really run it all. I ran the first 18 miles, and then there was a lot of walking and limping and just sobbing at the end. But I did do it. But anyway, when you are running a marathon and you haven't trained and you get to the 2-mile marker, you can't be tired because you've got another 24 miles to go, right? So when I was in newer promoting owner, I made such a big deal out of people getting promoted to assistant management. And I kind of gave them the impression, you did it. You had it, baby. You've done it, right? You've already run the 26 miles. Where's my medal? Whereas now I'm the complete opposite. When someone opens up an office, my attitude is, hey, congrats, great job. You've done something that not that many people have done. You're obviously tough, dedicated. You care about your guys. You take care of them. Really, you're just off the practice squad now. This is kind of my attitude. Like, you have made the team. Now, let's see how you're going to play the game. And who do you want to be? Do you want to go college? Do you want to go pro? Do you want to be a Hall of Famer? Right? This is the beginning. you know, when you open up an office. And I think in those first few years, I kind of almost made it like it was the end, like you did it. And, you know, human beings, whenever we achieve a goal, the chemicals in your brain change and you relax. So I think I promoted out a lot of relaxed people in the beginning. And this is an exaggeration, but after I learned that, I made assistant management in my office tougher. My theory was if they're going to quit, I'd rather they quit now before they go across the country with other people relying on them. Because I lost a lot of really great people that also quit when those offices shut down, you know, and they had a bad experience. And I wish that didn't happen. And if they just stayed with me, it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I always like the attitude, like John Wooden, his players would say practices were harder than the games. Like the games, like, oh, this is much easier than the practices with Coach Wooden. So if rookie ownership is actually easier than assistant management, you're probably doing something right.
Yeah. I think the Marines have a little saying like we sweat now so we don't bleed later, you know?
It's good. All right, any questions here, y'all? Ed, I think you did an outstanding job answering our questions, but let's see if the hamsters are running here.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question on that last one, actually.
Yeah, buddy.
So I'm curious, how do you distinguish the difference between a red flag and a problem that needs to be fixed versus a style or behavior as to how that person operates? And I have a couple examples if you want me to be specific.
Sure.
So one example is I am a very punctual person and I'm also a very morning person. And so I understand there's an integrity to if you say you're going to be somewhere at a certain time, do it. But I also recognize when my assistant manager is on his own, he's not going to schedule stuff at 8 in the morning. He's going to schedule it later and then be there. So distinguishing differences like that is kind of the general theme I'm going for.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So, I mean, I just think in general, if you're going to run a successful business, all the successful business owners that I know get up early. They have a schedule. They have a routine that works for them, and they're super reliable. You know, and so I think it's a problem. And you didn't say this, and you don't need to say this, but I think it's a problem if anybody in management shows up later than when it was agreed everyone should be there. I think that's a major problem. And it doesn't matter if it's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. I mean, on res, we have guys that show up late at 10:30. It's not the time, it's the attitude towards it, and like, do you care? You know? So that is a red flag if they're kind of breaking the rules now. Now, later on, at the end of the day, if they want to schedule their morning meeting for later, that's not the issue. The issue would be if they still came in late at that later time, if that makes sense. You know, and you know, to be like the word leadership in our business is kind of thrown around cheaply because someone can be in our business for 7 or 8 days and be a leader, right? They get the title. But really, you know, it's leadership the whole way, right? If you're going to be a great owner, it's because you're a great leader. If you're going to be a decent consultant, it's because you're a great leader, so on and so forth. It's that is the role. And so I think that as a, you know, and to be a great promoting owner, you only can do 3 things, I think, right? And I used to have some sleepless nights worrying about this, but this is all I've figured out that I can do that's in my control. Number 1 is you can always set a great example. Number two, you can always give good advice. Now, whether or not people take it or not, you don't have any control over that. Then sometimes people will take it immediately. Sometimes they need to go through a little bit more pain before they'll take it. And sometimes they'll never take it. Right. And then the third one for me is I'm always supportive. You know, I am always down to help people. Now, it's a good quote. You know, I don't mind carrying a man, but I'm not going to drag his feet. You know, so support doesn't mean I'm going to do it for you, but I will help you any way I can. So anyway, going back to the first one, being a great example, I think that's the most important one. If you do what you say you're going to do, or look at it a different way, if people copied what you do, would they be successful? You know, and so I do think that if you're going to run a decent business, it needs sharp edges. And if you say you're going to start at this time, that's when you need to start. You know, when Bill Belichick was winning all the Super Bowls with the Pats, you know, there was a game where there was a, what do they call it? A northeaster was coming into the New England area. And it was like a doozy, but they had like a 10 a.m. practice. And he just told the team beforehand, like, you cannot be late. I don't want to hear any excuses. If you need to get a hotel right by the stadium, that's what you should probably do. Right. And so the higher the standards, the higher the performance and the more championships you win, you know? So, yeah, I think it could be a problem. And the fact that you're asking the question probably is a problem. But, you know, they got to understand, like, you can't ask people to do what you're not doing. And going back to sports, if practice starts at 8 a.m., that is not when the coach gets there. That is not when the captain gets there. That is not when the top players get there. They all get their way early. They're stretching. They're getting ready because it's go time at 8. They're going to be activated at 8. You know? And I do think showing up early is a learned skill in that you leave early.
If Vince Lombardi had an 8 a.m. team meeting, the doors were locked at 7:45. So if you're not 15 minutes early, you're late. Like, just again, there's just so many stories about examples like that of, like, if you're committed and you're all in, like, yes, you're there.
But here's the thing. Yeah, but I don't judge at all. When I had other jobs that I didn't care about, that I didn't see the value, I didn't see any long-term future in it, I would show up late because I didn't care. It wasn't that I wasn't capable. It was just more important for me to sleep in longer or stay out later the night before because I didn't care. And that's fine too. But you, as the manager, you need to identify, you know, what do you want to get out of this? You know, when I was an assistant golf pro, there were definitely days where I was supposed to open the shop at 6 a.m. and I got there at 6:15 because I knew I wasn't going to be doing it for that long. And I could handle the slap on the wrist. So I think you learn more from, you know, people's actions than they don't even need to tell you anything.
Awesome, Ed. Well, Ed, we thank you for your time. We thank you
My
for
pleasure.
that beautiful picture. I'm just thinking of the Masters as you're talking. I'm like, oh yeah, beautiful. Maybe just close us on this. Every year you go to the Masters, you kind of have a rotation of people coming in and out of a house. Like, what do you got going on during
Not every year. I have done that a few times, but yeah. Maybe I need to do it again. It's been a while, but I generally go every year. Yeah, it's my favorite sporting event of the year.
Well, now you got me going online trying to get those tickets now. So
Law of averages, Jamie. Law of averages.
I just have to do it 200 times, and you're telling me one of those 200 times it's going to hit.
Correct.
Okay. I'll keep
apparently, allegedly. Who knows?
Allegedly. All right, awesome. Well, thanks, guys. Team, thanks
Thanks,
for all the
guys.
great questions. Ed, thanks for all the great answers, my friend.
Pleasure. Hope you guys have a good evening.
See you guys.